Clearly, for policy, it's the control of the House that matters today. You call it chalk dust torture. What will we see tonight, and what will it mean for policy and hence market reaction?
Well, the first big poll, first big state that closes is both Kentucky and Indiana at 6 p.m. tonight. You've got a bellwether race around Lexington in Kentucky. So if that race goes early for the Democrats, the so-called blue wave is very likely going to run from coast to coast. I think that one of the big things, though, regardless of election outcome, we expect the president to really lean in on trade, sort of the policy put that has kept a lot of his trade agenda, specifically auto tariffs and another round of China tariffs, could come by the end of this month.
So that almost doesn't count who controls the House or the Senate. I mean, that's going to happen sort of on its own terms. If we do see a change in leadership in the House, perhaps we'll see a change in leadership in the Senate. What does it mean for other things that might impact corporate America?
Well, don't forget, too, I mean, there's a wide swath of the House Democrats that at least privately agree with a lot of what Trump is doing on trade, specifically with China, right? You have organized labor, a key stakeholder in the Democratic Party, in favor of a lot of the trade narrative. You know, if you sort of look at that Venn diagram, the bipartisanship, where you could see a Speaker Pelosi and a President Trump come to agreement, you know, infrastructure is always going to be at the top of that list. You know, that story may go for about a week or so next year until the House Democrats start subpoenaing everyone with the last name Trump. And I suspect that the relationship between those two will quickly go to the wayside. These, by and large, if the House does flip to the Democrats, which we think it will, these are not Democrats being elected to cut deals with Trump, right? I mean, they're being elected to impeach Trump.
Chris, many investors seem to be treating these midterms like 2016, where they got their fingers burnt. Are we fighting the last war when actually this time is going to be significantly different? Is 2016 a useful comparison?
Well, polls close in Alaska in about 14 hours, so mercifully it will all be over. I think what we've seen thus far, though, with the early vote is record millennial turnout. It's always tough to model midterms versus the general, just with obviously larger voter participation in the general elections. A lot of signs pointing, though, that this could be the biggest midterm voter turnout in recent memory. So there are going to be a lot of surprises tonight, no question. And then 2020 will begin tomorrow morning.
OK. Let's talk a little bit about the trade story and kind of the likely outcomes. Have you guys looked at the possibility that if we find ourselves in a situation where the Republicans hold on to both houses, that actually is the straw that breaks the camel's back in the trade story, i.e. the Chinese will look at this and say, what we now have here is a serious continuation of policy, possibly a doubling down on policy when it comes to the trade story from the Trump administration. Now is the time to cut a deal.
Perhaps, but I mean, if in the red wave scenario, if Trump wins, he will have just been vindicated for the second time in as many years, right? I mean, he will be, very much feeling it. I suspect, at that point, he's going to lean in heavy across the board. So whatever deal that China is willing to sort of concede to, the bill probably goes up, right? It's a lot higher. You have the November 29th meeting in Buenos Aires, in theory, with Presidents Trump and Xi. The president, though, has threatened to release that $267 billion in final tariffs shortly after that meeting if the meeting doesn't go well. But yeah, I mean, no question. I mean, if the red wave materializes and Trump holds both the Congresses, he's going to be in a much stronger position from trade vis-a-vis China.
You say geography is destiny this year, maybe more than any other year or any other year so far. Where are you looking in particular tonight, Chris? Give us your top three races, say, in the House and in the Senate.
Well, I mean, in the Senate, there's really no way for the Democrats to flip the Senate without winning both Arizona and Nevada. So I would put those two on the list, and then probably Texas. If the Senate is going to flip, those are probably three pickups the Democrats need. And then in the House, you know, I mean, the big states are probably New York, Pennsylvania, and California. If the blue wave materializes, you know, you're going to need Democrats picking up, you know, a half dozen in at least California and Pennsylvania. And, you know, if the red wave happens, I mean, if Republicans can hold serve in New York, particularly upstate, that'll be the story. But I suspect those are the three big states in the House. And then, of course, you have all the governor's races, right? Basically the Big Ten plus Florida and Georgia, another big storyline, I suspect, for tomorrow.
Chris, you say that Democrats that are being elected today, particularly ones that haven't been elected before, are being elected for impeachment reasons and not for legislative reasons. At the same time, they'll be in. What will the Democrats do in a situation where they control the House in terms of legislation? Is there anything more than just impeding President Trump's agenda that they can do?
Well, I think, right, I mean, you're clearly going to have a number of investigations, right? I mean, Trump will have a useful political foil, likely with future Speaker Pelosi, but don't forget that foil has subpoena power. And I think that this administration is probably underprepared on the legal side for the firestorm that's coming their way. But, you know, I think you have seen healthcare being a big priority here. So, you know, a lot of legislation in that space, perhaps a push on infrastructure, and, you know, continued oversight on foreign policy as well. Would expect some more sanctions legislation out of House Democrats and others. But really, I mean, the focus is really going to be, I suspect, on investigating the administration.